There are certain ways we have been doing things all our life, and there are alternate perspectives. At Spill the Tea, we spill those alternatives or unconventional ideas. Hello, everyone. This is your host Keisha from Spill the Tea. It's been an absolute journey so far, only because of all the unconventional stories we have brought to our listeners. As mentioned on our website spillthetea.pods.com, that we don't do great things, our guests do, and we are just a medium to bring those amazing ideas to you. We'll do the same today, and so let me welcome our guest today all the way from the down under, Australia. Hi Tyla, how are you doing?
I'm doing so well and very, very excited to be here, and definitely from all the way down under.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Then we are glad to have you here. So guys, Tyla Lockwood is a passionate and driven marketer, content creator, sustainability advocate, and also a speaker. Her passions of personal development and sustainability meet as she helps others to build the life of their dreams whilst being kind to our beautiful planet. Tyla brings authenticity to everything she does by prioritizing her personal experience in her teachings. She is also a fellow podcaster, so that's how we got to know her as well. So let's begin, Tyla. Perhaps you would like to begin by introducing yourself and maybe add some more details that I missed out maybe earlier.
Well, thank you so much again. I am very, very excited to be here and talking to you today. And you did a great job introducing me. So let's see where I can fill in the gap. So yeah, I guess a great place to start is what you said there, is that my whole thing is about trying to help people live their best life whilst reducing their impact on the planet. And really that came from a whole bunch of different things. But my journey really started, I think, it was probably at the start of 2020. I was in Washington, DC on a sporting trip, and it was there that I kind of had what I call a bit of an epiphany, but I just had a moment of like, oh my God, this is life and I'm not living it. And it sounds so cliche whenever I retell it, but it was kind of that moment that spiraled everything for me. And so from there, I went and started the podcast and started talking a bit more about sustainability, and really have found a passion for the area and supporting people and businesses that I think are doing a really good job in the sustainability space, because I think overall, we're all going to have to get to a point where businesses are at least starting to be sustainable. So yeah, that's sort of a very brief gist of what I do. But like I said, you did a really good job introducing me already. So yeah, I kind of do whatever I feel like, lots of different things.
Awesome. And of course, that's how we got to know you from your podcast, because we're focusing more on sustainability. So that's how we found out about your project as well. So Tyla, there is an awesome phrase on your website that says, living your best life doesn't need to cost the planet. Now, that's a cool statement. However, maybe you can decipher it for us. Like, what is the meaning behind that phrase?
Yeah, so this is something I feel like I get asked some version of very regularly, because it is a little vague and it can sound a little contradictory. I think a lot of people see sustainability and sustainable living as sacrificial, and you have to give up everything, and it's very all or nothing. And that's a lot where the kind of start of this phrase means. And honestly, this phrase means so many different things. I could sit here for an hour and give you an hour-long description of how it kind of came to be. But for me, I truly see, at least something recently that I've been reflecting on, is that if we're not in our best selves and we're not being our best selves, we're not happy and healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, then we're not in the best place to do other good things. For example, looking after the planet. So recently I have been a little bit sick. So I've been in bed. I was in bed for like 3 days, and I was making bad decisions. And by bad decisions, I mean decisions I wouldn't usually make around sustainable things. And so it was things like that where I was like, if people aren't living their best life and in their best self, then they're not in the place to be able to really make serious change in their own lives and on the planet overall. On top of that, I think that each one of us is going to have an impact with our lives, no matter what, no matter how sustainably you live, you are going to leave at least some impact on this earth. And that's just the reality of being humans here. So the least we can do is make sure that the life that we live and the life that has this impact is the best life that we could possibly live. And I just truly think that each and every one of us deserve to live an incredible life, and what that looks like for each person is going to be very different, and not everyone is going to get there, and not everyone's going to stay there. A lot of the time people's dreams and goals and stuff change, and so it's more of a mindset that if you are working towards living your best life, being present in your life, because I think a lot of people as well have this sort of, they make these goals and these dreams and then it always feels like they're never achieving them because the goalpost keeps moving. So it's not just always striving, but trying to live and be in the moment in your best life, which then allows you to really reduce your impact overall. So again, I mean, I couldn't come into this from the point of view of I want everyone to be all or nothing, because I'm not all or nothing about anything when it comes to sustainability. And I mean, another example of this for me is I absolutely love travel. I don't know if it's my ADHD brain that thrives on being in new places and having new experiences, but I find travel really, really important for me. Yep. Obviously at the moment, not as much traveling's going on, that I find really important. So a lot of people probably think, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. She talks about sustainability. Why is travel something that you talk about as well? And it's because to me, to live my best life, that's going to involve travel, but I can also significantly reduce the impact of my travel by making certain choices about the way I approach it, what I do when I get there, how I get there. So I truly think that everything we do, there's a way that we can make it the best it possibly can be and make it something we really enjoy, whilst also reducing our impact. So I truly see it as a balancing act. But yeah, there are so many reasons that I use that phrase, and I do truly think that everyone deserves to live an incredible life. But the reality is we also need to cut down our impact on the planet. So I try to find a balance between doing both.
That's awesome. So basically what you're saying is it's important for us to live our life and also live an impact, but living that impact, make sure it doesn't impact so much the negativity sides of affecting our planet. And obviously this is what is your main message and main mission basically from your website and your podcast, which we can see clearly. So when I was listening to your podcast, I think the first episode that I've listened to your podcast is the one about the ocean. I think it was with Sasha. And I found that really, really insightful. So women play a very vital role in bringing all that change. I can say that. I think I'm confident enough to say that. And I'm even proud to say that sometimes the impact that they can bring is far more than men. Okay, this might be controversial, but this statement is actually from our male co-hosts. So, and they mean it. My observation is most of your guests are women as well. So my question is, do you think that women are better sustainable advocates than men?
Don't difference. And I mean, the fact that most of my guests have been women was definitely not on purpose, but I'm not probably surprised it turned out that way.
Yeah.
And I would say the reason it turned out that way as well is because a lot of the brands and a lot of the messages and a lot of the people that I personally connect to are women. Understanding and education, that really made sense to me in other women. And that's women who do all sorts of different things. The founder is her partner, Tom. And they just they run the business together. It just so happened that I spoke. It's one of those things that I don't know if the conversation would be different if it was with more males, blah, 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 blah. Long story short is that when it comes to guests, I kind of find online that to answer your, I guess, initial question, which is, I think that something that I learned when I was working in not-for-profit previously was a lot of the people that were regular, consistent donors were women who had a couple of kids. It was very like your white picket fence mums that had a couple of kids, were sort of in their 30s to 40s, that were people that were often doing regular donating, who were engaging with our content, that sort of thing. So when it comes to a charity basis, and this isn't a broad statement, this isn't for everything, but often it is that demographic that is engaging in causes and stuff like that. So that is an interesting kind of angle to look at it. But for me, I think that when it comes to sustainability from a diverse standpoint, and we look at all different intersections of the community when we are talking about these issues, because the reality is that a lot of people of colour are going to be much more affected by climate change and the impacts of the changing environment than white people are. And same thing with people depending on where they live in the world, so what their socioeconomic status is. And so it's things like that that I like to consider when talking to guests and making sure that I have people that represent all different areas and all different thought processes. So I don't think that women necessarily make better sustainability advocates, but I do think, at least me personally, and this is only talking from personal experience, it almost feels like I can't ignore a lot of the issues that go on in the world.
Yeah.
And I really connect with people who have that same vision and don't ignore or try or can't ignore things that they see going on in the world. So, and that comes from that can be a really difficult thing. It can be something where if you have any sort of empathy, and I think we all have empathy for other people, like to seek out the people who are willing to take action from that as well. So I don't know if we can say better advocates. I think I've definitely connected with women's work a lot more. But yeah, that's probably the best way that I would answer that.
Yeah, and I think that I think I completely agree with you. When you're engaging or when there's an activity relating to these causes, there are a certain demographic that are more interested to participate in those kind of campaigns. So I completely understand where you're coming from. So now it'll be weird if I ask you this question without explaining my thoughts. So do you think sustainability is the only way forward, or it has become like a fad? Because we may complain about, oceans getting plastic polluted, the corals dying, and landfills polluting the drinking water of what is left. However, if we really want to change that, it starts from our homes. That's why we have like advocates like you. And I see that you even conduct trainings for specifically this area. So tell us something more about why more people should participate in your types of course, and why they should implement this kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, so I guess to start off by saying, I think sustainability as a word is one that's often used because people are familiar with it. And it doesn't always get used the right way, by me included. Like, I think the true meaning of the term sustainability has very much been lost in the sea of people trying to make a difference. And again, I'm very much guilty of this as well. And because we know that people see that word, they recognize it, they kind of understand it. Whereas if you went out there and threw a whole bunch of really technical terms about what people are actually talking about, most people's eyes are just going to glaze over. So I think sustainability as a term is one that's really lost its meaning. And really, if you think about it, sustainability is about sustaining. We can't sustain what we're doing now. What we're doing now is not sustainable. So really, a lot of what you'll start to hear, and I'm sure people are already hearing now, is talking about things like regenerative agriculture, which is where we're kind of trying to sustain them and kind of repair the damage that's been done to things like soil. Like, that's a huge issue when it comes to regenerative agriculture, is repairing those soils, which has so many great flow-on effects. So I do think the term sustainability is one that has maybe lost a little bit of its true impact, but that's more just because people are trying to make the content accessible. So I think that as like sustainability in general, I don't think is a fad. I think that it's definitely something where people are more conscious of what's going on. People are visually seeing a lot of the impacts of climate change. They're seeing their beaches be polluted. They're seeing bushfires all around the world. They're seeing floods on one side of a country and bushfires on another. So it's one of those things that, since it's so visual, people are starting to make the connection. And I recently read a study that was from like 2019, so pre-pandemic, and it was something like, it was a study conducted between about, I think it was US people and it was Australian people, and it was like 93% of people surveyed said that they had some sort of general concern for the environment. So 93% is a lot. And here in Australia specifically, I think it's like 9 in 10 people are willing to buy or want to have access to a more sustainable alternative when they're doing their shopping. So it's definitely something that's on people's minds. And I don't think this is something that's going away. Like, well, I know that this is something that's not going away, because we are just going to see more and more visual representations of climate change enacting in the way it will, and the more it impacts people, the more they're going to have to wake up and do something about it. So to answer your initial question, no, I don't think it's a fad. I can't remember the second part of the question. It was why should people get involved?
Yeah, in your course specifically, or something along the lines of campaign that's aligned to your mission.
Yeah, so I think that when it comes to sustainability, there's so much stuff out there, as I said before. So I would say that the biggest thing is finding what's like important to people and finding what they're passionate about. So if you're really passionate about low waste, then do that. If you're really passionate about renewable energy, then focus on that. Trying to do everything is just going to burn you out. I mean, I think I'm not alone in being there, where you've just had moments where you're kind of rocking on the floor in the corner going, there's too much wrong, I can't do anything, it's just too much. So I really think that the reason that I made my course, at least, to kind of go down that route, was because I wanted people who wanted just a step-by-step plan, who wanted it done for them, who just wanted to be told what to do, and kind of find a collaborative approach with an instructor to get to where they needed to be on their low waste living journey. So I don't think the course is for everyone. I think that if that's what you're looking for, and if you're looking for guidance and you're looking for how to get started and have a long-term sustainable way of doing low waste living, that was why I created the course. But that's not going to be the right thing for everyone. And so if someone prefers to just try and fail on their own, then do that, because that's how I did it. I did a lot of trial and failure. Or if they want to access online YouTube videos, big fan of those podcasts. There is so much information and piece of content about sustainability can just like it, for me, at least when I listen to that sort of stuff, it really just fuels my passion and gives me ideas for change. And so I think that anyone can make one small thing. And as I say to everyone, like if climate change isn't real, let's just say, we know it is, but say it is. If climate change isn't real and none of these bad things that we think are going to happen if we keep doing the same thing, then the worst thing that happens is we live in a more beautiful world and we get to enjoy that more beautiful world. So, and I think as well, a lot of like sustainability practices are really intertwined with like mindfulness and conscious and slower living, which I think is, again, such a beautiful thing to be a part of, and such a better way to live, or not a better way, but such, in my opinion, a more natural way for us to live. So yeah, there was a lot in there. I kind of went a few different ways with it, but I truly think everyone can get involved in some way, shape or form. And as I said before, we all have an impact on the planet. So the least we can do is try and reduce that a little bit.
Yeah, completely agree. And the fact that you have created an online course to create awareness on this lifestyle itself is amazing, because I don't think many people know that, you know, minor or small actions can actually make a difference. And I understand this kind of journey, when you started, probably it wasn't easy, but the sense of achievement you get from is amazing. Like last year, after I watched this documentary called The Game Changers, I challenged myself to not eat meat, and that lasted about 1.5 months. Eventually I started eating smaller portions of meat again, starting with chicken and fish, but until today I've not eaten any beef, so I don't know, I hope that will last. So the transition in the beginning was so hard, but it paid off. I was like,
well done, okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. So my question is, how difficult was it for you to transition to a low waste lifestyle?
It's a very slow journey. That's what I have to like emphasize to people. And I think this is with any change in your life.
Yeah.
Unless you're someone who can very easily just jump all into things and stay committed to them, then I would say take it really slow. And to me, I always encourage people to start with a waste audit. So that's just looking at what they've already got, what waste they have, and it's essentially just going through your bins and seeing what waste you produce, where it comes from. About 99.999% of people, most of their waste is going to come from their kitchen and then next from their bathroom. So those are two really easy places and great places to get started, because there are just there's so much plastic involved. And again, what you kind of consider low waste is going to change for everyone. Most people that I know and most people that I've seen online really like to single-use plastics is really just using something once just to throw it out. It doesn't sound very smart in my mind, but single-use plastics are a huge issue. But when we're talking about waste in general, we're also talking about things like food waste. Food waste has a huge impact on the environment. I mean, not only are we talking about the production of that food that then is not being consumed, but we're also talking about when you put your regular rubbish, your like regular food waste into the landfill and it breaks down in the landfill, it produces significant greenhouse gases, much more intense greenhouse gases than you get from a lot of other things, and it doesn't allow it to break down properly like it would in something like a compost. So when it comes to low waste living, you've really got to look at the areas again that you're passionate about and that you care about. For me, I'm still not perfect to this day. We live in a world where everything is plastic, like there is plastics all around us. So I do the best I can. Most people I know will try and make small changes and do the best things that they can. And it's really about finding what fits into your lifestyle. So there are so many things. I can't even think of an example now, but there are so many things that I've tried and hated and needed to find a different alternative for me. Like there were just things where I was like, this will work, this will be great. And I tried it and I hated it. And so it's about finding things that work into your lifestyle. And this, I think, again, is where the living your best life part comes in, is that if there's a low waste swap that you hate and you despise doing, and it just causes you a lot of friction and a lot of anger, you're not going to commit to doing it long term. You're not going to be empowered doing it. So I would suggest trying to find a different alternative and pushing through things without finding something you love. You're just never going to make as positive of a difference, and you're going to see every low waste swap as a pain and as a hassle when they're not. There are so many that are so much easier. I mean, for me, I preach about these because I love them, but bar products in your bathroom and in your shower: shampoo, conditioner, soap, face wash, face scrub. You can also get, that I'm really excited to try, like bar moisturizer. And for me at the moment, I'm interstate traveling, and they are a lifesaver when you're traveling. Like they have improved my life rather than taking back from it. So it's about finding the changes that really work for you, really suit you, and then making that change. And don't expect yourself to do everything all at once. Like start with one thing, start with a few different things, start with just not buying your produce in plastic bags. Like most grocery stores will have a bag of apples and then loose apples. So then just buy the loose apples and start with small things like that, and then build up to things where they kind of feel like a bigger step. So you might feel like certain things are on the same level. So it might be things like produce shopping. And then the next step for you might be going to buy your food from a bulk food store, or ordering stuff online through a retailer that packages in cardboard. Stuff like that, where you can slowly make those changes in one area, is really great. Or if you can make one small change in each area. There's honestly so many different approaches you can make, but yeah, for me, low waste living has been something that has been it's a bit of a battle sometimes. There are times where I felt a lot of friction with it, but I think I'm in a flow of it now where I'm just really conscious of the waste that I'm producing, which makes it a lot easier to not produce it.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And of course, I think figuring out the best one that suits you is really hard, because and obviously thanks for sharing that. I think making that first initiative is such an important step. Now BB and I have been trying to make some simple step in our routine to at least be part of your movement. In my case, I have become more aware about the beauty products that I have used, and I'm proud to say that most of the stuff, I think for now, is zero waste, except for my skincare and my shampoo. I'm still finding like the right product for my shampoo, and obviously it's not really well known here yet, or I think it's still a growing trend about zero waste beauty products. So I'm still figuring out what's the best brand, or which one will give me like the best solution for this. And however, I still find it difficult to adapt to these and finding the right ones, like what you said, it's like trial and error. However, when it comes to clothes, apparel, we get so many misleading messages nowadays. Some brands claim that their products are more environmentally friendly, and the ironic part is these are mostly fast fashion industry, which are some of the major contributors in landfills. So what is your opinion on greenwashing in advertising? How do we know which brand to support?
Yeah, so first of all, congratulations on your changes. It's very exciting to hear. And again, what you said there just is a testament to how hard it can be. I mean, we're not in a world that is optimized for low waste living, put it that way. But there are definitely changes that each of us can make depending on where you want to focus your changes. So I think that that's really awesome. I just want to say good job first.
Awesome. Thank you.
So to answer your question, greenwashing is a huge issue in, I think, everything. There's greenwashing in absolutely everything. Even the recycling industry, like the recycling industry saying that things get recycled a lot of the time is a lie. Like it's something like 9% of plastics actually get recycled, and with a material like plastic, like you can only recycle it a few times. So in my mind, it's mildly greenwashing. That doesn't mean don't recycle, like do all of the things and do all of the steps, but just be aware that a lot of the time it doesn't get recycled. But when it comes to the fashion industry in particular, I mean, we're seeing brands like H&M come out and say they have a conscious line. And to me, it just blows my mind, because you're a company creating millions, maybe not billions, millions, hundreds of millions of products, like pieces of garment a year. That in itself is entirely unsustainable. So when it comes to greenwashing, I think the first thing is just being aware that companies can do it and that it's a thing. A very good definition, but this is the way that I see it. It's really just when a company is pretending or portraying themselves to be a lot more environmentally friendly and ethical, usually as well, than they actually are. So when it comes to greenwashing brands, the first thing you need to do is look at what they're producing. How much stuff is there? If you walk into a H&M 1 week to the next, there will be a whole different clothing options. They will have replaced almost every item. Like, it's crazy. That is an unsustainable practice. If you find a brand that is a small brand and they have a few items and they do small runs of them, then that's a pretty good sign that they're at least reducing their production. So then you kind of look at other signs. So things for me in particular that I look for, their factories and their suppliers, what those factories are like, how they're treating their employees. Unfortunately, this isn't something that's easy for us as consumers to fact check, but there are some great companies out there that fact check suppliers. If you can find the supplier, some of them will link to them. Usually if it's a good brand, they'll link to their supplier or allow you to access their supplier. So things like that might be out of the realm for people, but if you really want to check that a brand is ethical, then that's a great way to do that, is checking in on their suppliers. When it comes to sustainability, I always look at what fabrics they're using. That for me is a big one, because when we're talking about plastics, we're not just talking about a plastic cup that you get your coffee in or you get a drink in. We're talking about things like microplastics that come from wearing polyester clothes. So if you have a clothing item that is made from a polyester or any other sort of synthetic fiber, every time you wash it, you are likely releasing, it's like little micro fibers of that will come off, and that is a microplastic. So that's another area where it comes to low waste living that we need to think about. So I always look for natural materials, so things like cottons, linen, depending on whether you do or don't want to have animal products. Things like wool and silk are usually wool. They're not vegan, but they are natural fibers. So there's things like that you can look for. What's it called? I'm trying to think of the one that is like bamboo fibers is usually a great one. I can't think of the name, but as soon as I get off this, I'm going to think of the name of the one I'm trying to think of. So there are just so many. I remember what it was. So Tencel, which is the brand name, or Lyocell is another great natural fiber. That one, I believe, is made of like bamboo or tree bark sometimes, or both. So yeah, there are lots of things that I look for when it comes to like the actual materials of the clothes. Because if I go on a brand that's saying it's sustainable and their first product is made of polyester, that's a big red flag for me. Some people might think that's okay. For me, that's something I'm not really willing to compromise on. Some brands will do recycled polyester and recycled plastics, especially for things like bathing suits, because it's hard to get a natural fiber in those types of materials. Again, that's something you can choose for yourself. You'll still have the same microplastic issue if you get bathing suits that are made of even a recycled polyester, but of course it's still going to be, a recycled synthetic fiber, but it's always going to be better than its own new produced one. For me, I'm trying to buy only natural fibers from now on, even if I'm going to op shops and secondhand stores, which then makes it much harder, but trying to buy only natural fibers. And then when you look at things like what their packaging comes in, or like how they send their products to you, are they carbon neutral? What service are they using to send them? When you get them, do they come in a whole bunch of plastic? Are they in a compostable mailer? Do they have other options? There's honestly just so many things that you can look at when it comes to a brand. And it again is going to depend on your own personal values. I like to see things like making sure the packaging comes in no plastic. Sometimes you can just email people and ask them to not send your package in plastic. But not everyone's willing to go along with that. So yeah, there's honestly so many different things. And this actually links back to the question you asked before about women in the sustainability movement. When it comes to fashion in particular, women and children are very, very often subject to poor working conditions, poor pay, unsafe working conditions in a lot of these fast fashion factories. So that's another reason I think it's really important to power female voices in these sorts of things, because they're often, not always, but often the people who are directly impacted by unethical practices. So I do talk a lot about sustainability, but I am very passionate about making sure that where you're buying your clothes from and where you're buying really anything from, who is making that, are they safe, and how much are they getting paid, and do they have to work 100 hours a day just to make $10? Like that to me is not, it's not empowering to wear a piece of clothing that costs $5 and someone earned nothing making in an unsafe factory. So there was a lot there, but yeah, there's so many different things that you can look at when looking for sustainable and ethical fashion. That's why I think it's really important to define what your values are, define what you care most about. Like I said, for me, natural fibers is number one, or like not number one, but it is
something that you look out for.
High up there. So as soon as I go onto a clothing brand's website, I'm looking at where their materials are coming from, what supplier is even making the materials. That's another one. A lot of people just look at who's assembling the garments, but like who's making the fabric that the people are then putting together. So yeah, there's so much that you can look at. And again, this is why companies are able to get away with greenwashing, because there are so many different things that we need to look at when making these choices when it comes to sustainability, especially in fashion. And like I said, we know that the fashion industry is so damaging. So the best things that people can do if they are trying to buy better is to shop your own wardrobe first, shop secondhand. If that's not available to you, then shop as sustainably as you can, and make sure whatever you're buying new or even secondhand fits in.
All right, thank you so much for sharing that. And so the main point here that you look out for is number one, the ingredients or the material, and then the second one is basically production, to make sure that it's produced sustainably. And that's why sometimes advertising can be misleading, because they ignore that part and they focus on another part which make them sound more sustainable, which is kind of scary, but actually it works. So oh god, we only have 5 minutes left, so I'll make it quick.
I was gonna say, just before we go on to the next one, okay. Oh, sorry, there was just a bit of a delay. Sorry
same here.
I was going to say that if you want to see an example of a brand that has a really good, transparent outline of pretty much everything they do, the brand ABCH, it's a Melbourne-based brand. I'm actually wearing one of their shirts right now. Their brand is like one of the most sustainable. And if you go onto their website, they detail every single step of the process, like every single step of what they do. It's so transparent. So if you want if you want a good idea of what a brand is doing really well, check them out.
All right. Thank you so much, Tyla. So it's ABCH based in Melbourne.
Yeah.
All right, I'll check that out.
Yeah.
And oh god, so 5 minutes. I'll make it fast. So obviously, when we do this, we also want to encourage or empower other people to do it. Because if we believe in something and we want to influence other people to feel how we feel towards the planet, like you. And so my question is, how do you encourage people around you to implement this lifestyle? And what are the tips that we can share to them without being too pushy? Might as I say, yeah.
Number one thing you can do is lead by example. So if you're doing things within your own life that are making a difference, people are going to notice that. If someone comes over to your house for dinner and they see you composting the food waste, they're going to go, "Oh, you're composting. Tell me about that." And that often starts to suggest easy alternatives. So for my parents, I really wanted them to stop using Glad wrap. So I bought a few silicone Ziploc bags that served the same purpose for what they were doing. That for them was an easy switch. That for them didn't add extra work. They got used to using it. They tried it and they liked it. There are plenty of other things that I've gotten for them to try and make the change that they didn't like. So I think that for me, that was, instead of me banging my head against the wall, asking them to stop using something without giving them a good alternative, trying to suggest some easy changes they can make. Tell people how much you love stuff without it being pushy. So I could say, if someone says, "Oh, your hair looks nice today," I'll say, "Oh, thank you. I use this bar shampoo and conditioner. I really like it. You should try it out." So I think small things like that, but number one is always lead by example. People will be interested in the changes you're making and the things you're doing. And especially in the age of social media, they'll want to post about it. And if you post that you're doing something, share it with your friends, you're likely to have them see it, message you and say, "Oh, what is this?" Or be like, "Oh, I didn't know such and such was doing that. Maybe I'll give it a go." So those are just a few things you can try.
All right, so lead by example. All right, thank you so much, Tyla, for joining us here. I think that wraps up our discussion for today. I think we only have 1 minute left, oh god. For our listeners there, I hope you learned something new and you are equally inspired by Tyla's story. And Tyla, would you like to share your social media? Where can we find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So pretty much everywhere, my social handles are just Tyla Lockwood, Tyla for Tyla. And you can find my podcast, which is the Unlock Earth podcast, just by searching it. And my website is tylerlockwood.com, which has links to everything else.